No, I'll do it again at the end of the meeting. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the November 1-2-TH meeting of the, November 12th, I'm sorry, meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I am past president Sean Mullen, filling in for our staycationing and heavy metal wannabe president, Doug, who is staycationing here in Iowa. We are really glad to be here at the Wakanda Club with those of you who are here in person and those of you who are watching on live stream on YouTube. So we're glad you're with us today. We want to welcome all of you, whether you're here with us here or visiting us on YouTube. And we also want to thank the wonderful team of Invictus Media for helping present our meeting today. You guys do a great job every time, and we really appreciate all that you do to help us communicate our important messages. Now, you may notice that I am not wearing a mask while I'm at the podium so that you can hear me more clearly, and since I'm better looking without it. And since I'm safely distanced from all of you, I don't have to pay attention to your silly quips. Now, I will be sanitizing the microphone between speakers, and we do ask, in all honesty, that you keep your masks on when not eating or drinking or are speaking here at the podium. Friends, before I ask past President Mike Lemire to share a moment of inspiration, I would like all of us to have a moment of silence for a member, Steve Roberts, who passed away this past Saturday. Steve was a member of our club for 37 years, and he was also a frequent visitor to the Des Moines AM Rotary Club, where he was very popular. Our sympathies to Don and the Roberts family, but let us pause for a few moments in memory of past Rotarian Steve Roberts. Thank you. We'll now invite past President Mike up to the microphone for some moments of inspiration. Mike?
Some of you will remember 2 years ago, I gave this same inspiration, and yesterday being Veterans Day, I thought this is apropos to repeat it. So we'll start out with the words of inspiration. It is the soldier, not the minister, who has given us freedom of religion. It is the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of the press. It is the soldier, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer, who has given us freedom to protest. It is the soldier, not the lawyer, who has given us the right to a fair trial. It is the soldier, not the politician, who has given us the right to vote. It is the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag, who allows the protester to burn the flag. Now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Mike. And please wave at your fellow Rotarians. Since you're wearing them, Mike.
Don't laugh. You'll get old someday.
We are all safely distanced and segregated here at today's meeting. The only integrated table is the table that I'm hosting with Mike and Claudia. We have the boys' table, and we have oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. I didn't see Josh over there. My bad. Oh, hey, thank you to Colleen Rogers Messenger for being the champion of all the Thanksgiving gift card initiatives for Edmonds Elementary. And thanks to all of you for your generosity. Colleen will be delivering 191 Fairway gift cards to Edmonds Elementary after Rotary today. And get this, Fairway donated an additional 9 cards on top of all of our generous donations. So thank you, fellow Rotarians, and thank you, Fairway, for your generosity and help in doing that important work. Friends, I'm honored to get to introduce our speaker today, who is also a fine member of the Rotary Club of Des Moines, and she happens to be our membership development chair. Claudia Schabel, founder, president, and CEO of Schabel Solutions, has been on a 20-plus year mission to raise awareness and consciousness about social justice, race relations, and equity. Schabel Solutions staff have 25-plus years of experience as diversity, equity, and inclusion human resources and compliance practitioners, largely with Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies. The team combines its expertise with significant international experience and multicultural backgrounds to help organizations address the dangers of unmitigated, unconscious bias, untapped talent, missed market opportunities, and stagnant innovation. Schabel Solutions uses Claudia's signature framework and people-centric tools to deliver innovative and customizable solutions for training, public speaking, coaching services to businesses, governmental, educational, and not-for-profit organizations. Claudia is Intercultural Development Inventory certified for conducting robust organization-wide cultural assessments, and her company, Schabel Solutions, is a Women Business Enterprise National Council, a women-owned small business, and an Iowa Targeted Small Business Certified. Here's what's really cool about Claudia. She is a commissioner on the City of Des Moines Civil and Human Rights Commission and serves on the Iowa Society for Human Resource Management, otherwise known as SHRM, their state council, as the director for diversity and volunteers for several organizations in the community which benefit from her insights. After growing up in Brazil and working in Japan, Claudia has made her home in Des Moines with her spouse Brad and their always playful English golden retriever, Stormy. Let's welcome Claudia to today's meeting.
Thank you, Sean. It's my pleasure and honor to be here. I feel like I'm coming home. I haven't been here in quite some time. And I'm sure those of you that are live streaming today are missing this place like I was. Thank you. This is an honor. And as I said, really a privilege to be addressing this club. This is the podium of Des Moines, right? So let's get started. This is a great opportunity for us to have a very meaningful conversation around not only diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is what I do for a living, but also what's happening in the United States and across the globe right now. We don't have a lot of time, so I strategically chose to talk about 3 objectives with you today. And the first one is really to talk broadly about what the post-COVID-19 expectations for leaders are going to be and have become. Second, I want to explore the concept of unconscious bias. And then last but not least, I want to end with 3 actions that you as an individual, but also as a member of any organization, can really take back with you and commit to doing at least one of them. So this is our vision for our organization: to transform workplaces and communities with innovative solutions to end discrimination and affirm respect for people. For all people around the world, so everyone can thrive. Surviving in the workplace is not good enough. And the way we do that is really by going in, consulting, and really customizing some of the solutions that work for you. The backdrop of this conversation here today is COVID-19. This is a snapshot of what was happening in Iowa around June. And as you can see, we had a surge of positive cases in Iowa in May, and we're just coming down from that surge. As we started to acknowledge the impact of COVID-19, we always started to realize and affirm or ascertain the impact of COVID-19 on vulnerable communities. And we started to more openly talk about the disparities. Here in Iowa alone, we realized that the Latinx community and the Black community in Iowa were being impacted greatly. Those numbers have changed since May and June, but it was a huge red flag for all of us to realize that in those communities, the impact of COVID-19 was much more evident and much more dangerous. And one of the reasons for that is because within those communities, we have individuals that cannot afford either to access health care or work from home and protect themselves. They were in the front lines. In addition to COVID-19, we also saw the killing of George Floyd. And the killing of George Floyd was a catalyst for a lot of those conversations that many of us have been having at work or at home in our communities, some of us much more openly than others. And this conversation was really around not only racism, but what was happening in general with those communities that were being impacted by COVID-19. The killing of George Floyd sparked this conversation in a much more forceful way. And when I mean forceful, I don't mean negative. But we know now, we see in the headlines, we know now employees are coming to their workplace and asking for bold actions. And that is now one of the expectations for those of you that are hiring young talent, for those of you that have young talent at home. It's not good enough to make a statement and walk away or leave it at that. You have to back your statement of support for social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion with bold actions. Because now silence is perceived as you being an accomplice of keeping in place some of the policies and practices that continue to perpetuate some of those outcomes that are inequitable. Now, let me just remind everyone here, this conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion is often misunderstood to be just about one facet of who we are. Meaning we focus on gender, we focus on race, but the reality is it's really about all of us. It's multifaceted. It's a lot about the social identities that all of us have. Often, for those of you that know me, I always introduce myself as, yes, I am a woman, I'm Latinx, I am a professional, and I'm the mother of a puppy. All those things help us be who we are in a very unique way. So just because we don't share the same identities, it doesn't exclude you from this conversation. And it is also important to understand how those identities, when they're layered one on top of another, it can compound the impact and the effects of discrimination and even racism. And that's why this conversation in our communities, in our workplaces, is so important. Because if you have one person feeling left out or feeling that they're being discriminated against, it is a direct impact to your bottom line in your workplace and also in your community. The business case for diversity, equity, and inclusion has three facets. The first one, it's a moral imperative. It's the Rotarian thing to do. It makes sense to treat people with respect and understand what they have to offer and really fold them into who we are and ensure that they feel welcome. The second is the economic imperative. We know that we're having a demographic shift in our country. We know that by 2040, we will no longer have one majority in terms of race or ethnicity. And that means your grandchildren, maybe your neighbor, maybe the employees that we're working with, all of them are going to have those multiple identities. So it's important for us to also understand that when they bring those identities to work, they're there to give their best. And those different identities allow them to offer different perspectives. And it's proven with hard data by McKinsey and Company reporting, by Deloitte, by Morgan Stanley, that when you have more diversity in terms of racial and ethnic diversity on your teams can outperform your competition. It might take a little bit of time at first, because if you have worked with people from different perspectives and backgrounds, you would know what I'm talking about. It's like a heartbeat. It takes time to expand. You get all the ideas in, and then you contract so you can actually go to the point and get something done. But when you work with people that think like you, is it more efficient? Is it more effective? Naturally, it is. So we have this dichotomy of wanting to get things done really quickly at the expense of including people from a diverse background. And when I say diverse, I am saying all different ways that we are diverse. Goes beyond being your gender, goes beyond your race and your ethnicity. So the intersectionality of all of our identities is crucial during this time and during this conversation. So for us leaders, understanding that is a new expectation as well. Unconscious bias. Many of you are very familiar with this term. This term has become mainstream. When we talk about unconscious bias, we're talking about those associations and quick judgments we make in our minds outside of our awareness. And they're happening just like this, in the blink of an eye. And those shortcuts are helpful because they help us think really fast. They help us with our instinctive gut reactions that at times have kept us safe. However, those shortcuts don't always line up with our core values, and they don't always line up with our conscious mind. And those shortcuts could lead to that discrepancy between your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. And that is what we're talking about, the dangers of having that discrepancy, the gap between your intentions and the impact you want to have in the world. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the term, this might not be of any surprise to you, but I wanted to show you in real time how our brain really operates. So what I want you to do is to watch this video and pay attention to the nuances. Pay attention to the nuances of how this person is experiencing his day.
5.
So P&G worked on this, produced this ad to really talk about the look that some of us might experience. In particular, though, we're talking about being a Black American and what it feels like to walk around in that skin and really feeling the looks that might not always be supportive looks. Now, I don't want to dilute the Black American experience, but I do want to mention that perhaps you have experienced a similar type of look that has nothing to do with the color of your skin. It could be because you have a disability. It could be because you are in a same-sex marriage. It can be so many different things. So there is a different look for different people, but the sentiment is very similar, feeling that you're being perhaps scrutinized. And who likes to be scrutinized? Now, I want to switch gears here. I want you to play a little game with me. Are you willing to play? Yes? Okay, so you have to tell me the color you see in the screen. So let's test it. What color do you see? Thank you, Sean. That's not the actual backdrop, just the... Thank you, Sean. Yes. Let's try again. What color do you see? Red. Thank you. Yes. Black. Thank you. Chris, you're doing great. I have to hear it out loud, okay? And I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. So here we go. I can't hear you. What happened? Is it harder? Are you trying to tell your brain to do something that it's not doing? Yeah, so that's what's happening with our brain often. We think we have things under control, but there are things that are happening completely outside of our awareness. And even when we put some effort into it, it doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen very smoothly. So our brain has a very different way of processing information at the conscious level and unconscious level. So when we talk about unconscious bias, what we're really talking about here is that unconscious biases help perpetuate the practices, the policies, the frameworks that we have in place today that are leading to inequitable outcomes and social disparities. The same disparities that make us sad, that make us angry, that make us ask why. Our actions sometimes are unknowingly to us perpetuating those practices, perpetuating those results. And that's why at the individual level, all of us have some accountability to understand how our behaviors are contributing to perpetuating some of these results. And again, it doesn't make us bad people. It doesn't make us someone who is intentionally trying to do anything wrong. It just allows us to understand that as humans, we're all in the same boat and we all operate in a very similar fashion. And knowing that this is a human condition also allow us to take a more proactive role in how we can mitigate some of our biases so we can address some of those inequitable outcomes in our communities, in our workplaces, and so forth. So knowing is, I think, the true gift here. Now that we know, now that we have awareness, the question is, what are we going to do about it? Because just because this is the way our brains operate, it doesn't mean we're off the hook. Each one of us still have this responsibility to really investigate how it can be mitigated. The organizations that have not empowered or educated their employees to mitigate biases, unfortunately, have gotten a spotlight, and have made the headlines. Some of these organizations have been in the headlines for about 2 years. Some of these are brand new. Every single week, our organization does research to find out what are some of the missteps that are happening related to unconscious bias. And these headlines, I know you can't see it, the details of it, but a lot of these headlines are not only about race, and I'll stress this over and over again, it's about age. We're seeing a high rate of discrimination based on age. There is this new expectation that when you hit 65, you're supposed to be talking about retirement, when in reality, we know we're living longer lives. We want to work longer. And that expectation has not been adjusted yet. So it's important to have conversations about unconscious bias to understand how it is impacting you on a personal level, but also your organization. Now, disclaimer here, these organizations are not bad organizations, and the people that work there are not bad people. What this is bad business. It's bad for business because you don't want to become a headline. When you become a headline, it taints your reputation, and it plants the doubt in your customer's head, are they going to treat me this way? Does this impact me? Should I worry? And we don't want any of our customers, any of our employees to be thinking like this. So when we talk about expectations for leaders in post-COVID-19 era, we're really talking about having more meaningful conversations about what it means to be a human being in the workplace. And Netflix captured some of those conversations in the concept of what it means to be an ally. How do you, no matter who you are, can be a part of this conversation and really help make your community, make your organization a better organization?
Hello.
Cornell.
Hoy.
Hi.
مرحبا أنا نو.
Konnichiwa.
Vamos a hablar.
This is about you.
This is about us.
I'm a father of 4 amazing kids.
A dancer, but only in my bedroom.
A believer in the power of stories.
Soy bilingüe, casi trilingüe.
An engineer. A nerd.
Sou lésbica, eu sou amiga.
Japanese. Korean.
Palestinian, a German national,
An immigrant, East Asian American woman of color.
and a Zemiltek.
あなたも私の同僚です。
We make amazing things together. We aspire to bring joy.
To the entire world.
But
You and I inhabit different worlds.
You and I have access to different spaces.
unless you've experienced it, you can never fully understand what it's like to be stuck between 2 cultures.
To pretend to be someone else in order to be safe.
To grow up in South America and Spanish, and at 19 having to relocate to the US and live in English.
To be a black gay man from the rural South.
And be the only one in the room.
Unless you've experienced it yourself, you can never really know what it's like.
To have to listen to someone be degrading to your race and be the only person of that race in the room.
To lose friends, family, co-workers, simply because you wanted to be who you are.
To not know whether you can call the country that you love home.
To be the father of a trans daughter.
I think we all have a responsibility to make the world that we live in a little bit better. And you kind of have to start where you are.
What allyship is listening, compassion.
To immerse yourself in content and experiences and stories from groups that aren't of your own.
Anybody who sees something that isn't quite right can become an ally and help their cause.
When you've been through a struggle that hurt you for such a long time, I think you have this endless energy to give to others.
Anyone can be an ally, and everyone can use an ally, and you can use your privilege in the moment to extend that privilege to someone else.
I think this is what makes us human, to help others and to be empathetic.
We're all learning.
We're all learning.
E tá todo mundo aprendendo.
Mabad.
Together,
Juntos.
There's one company.
We can all be allies.
We can all be allies.
To me, this conversation about being an ally sounds like a Rotarian conversation. When we look around the world, the impact that we have, the people that we help, understanding that it's not enough to give money to a project. We actually want to help them become sustainable. All of those concepts are tied tightly into this conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So when we talk about actions, it also ties back to, is it going to build goodwill and better friendships? Those meaningful relationships that we want to have. So here are the 3 actions that I am posing to you today. The first one is to interrupt unconscious bias and understand that your reality might not be everyone's reality. And really ask your the question, is it the truth? And how do you find out? So going beyond the surface and really asking questions to seek to understand what's happening around you and understanding that your mind is playing tricks on you sometimes is the first step. The second action, become what I call a triple A. It does start by being an ally, which an ally, you listen, you have compassion, empathy, but go beyond being an ally, really become an accomplice. Get in there and get the job done with the people that are getting it done. And the third level is really to become an advocate, which I think all of you are already a very great advocate in our communities for many causes. But becoming an advocate for this cause, it's really about speaking out and speaking up. It's really about doing this work without having to rely on other people to carry the heavy load. It's really taking the initiative. And really thinking through, is it fair to all concerned? Because if it's not, then we have a role to play in it. And use your privilege. Use your privilege to drive and influence systemic changes. It's really around challenging the status quo. Right now, we have a health crisis. There is an opportunity to reimagine what the healthcare system is going to look like in the future. I would argue that there is an opportunity for us to reimagine everything we do, everything. And if you have that opportunity, wouldn't it be great to really ask the question, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And when you ask those questions, you have the opportunity to really change how things are done and make them more equitable. And when I say equitable, it doesn't mean taking from one group and giving to another group. It's really ensuring that all groups of people have what they need to be successful. So with that, I conclude my remarks, Sean. Open for questions if we have time.
We're waiting for people to come forward. For those of you on the live stream, if you didn't see the video clearly on the screen being filmed, we are including those in the link to those videos in our newsletter this Tuesday. So, and for those of you who want to see it again, it'll be there for your access.
Bob Vidral to those out in there and here. Yeah. Great presentation. And I probably took this too literally when you said going forward a post-pandemic world, yeah. Because then I heard you say what great opportunities that we all have in our organizations to create change right now. What are you seeing that some of the organizations that you service are stepping up to further create inclusion during these times? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Great question, Bob. So I'm going to tell you 2 things that I have seen, and I'm going to tell you also what organizations are trying to do. What we have seen is that organizations that seem to particularly have a young population of workers, I'm referring to millennials, I'm referring to Gen Z, there is high pressure to demonstrate in bold actions what you mean by supporting social justice, what you mean by supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. And And that pressure comes in many different ways, but it comes by telling the CEO that they're not doing enough. It comes by having meetings outside of company time and talking about company issues, which could lead to some issues later on. So in other words, we have seen that employees are getting very impatient if organizations don't have a plan of action, if they don't have a strategy. What we have seen since May is that many organizations are ready to have that conversation about having a strategy. And I always tell them I'm very biased towards having a strategy, because this work you could be doing 24/7 and not get anywhere, because there's a ton of things that you could be doing, right? It's for a lifetime we could be doing this, and it should be. It should be integrated into who we are, how we do our jobs, how we do our business. But a strategy has been the number one priority for a lot of companies that have been doing this work more sort of a programmatic approach, more of an activity approach, more or less celebrate this day, let's do X, Y, and Z, and now it's let's full-blown develop a strategy. That's what I have seen. What I also have seen is that some organizations here in the Des Moines area and across the country have also been hiring their own internal diversity, equity, and inclusion person to do this work, because they recognize that they need someone to do it full-time, to do it consistently and sustainably. You're welcome.
Hi, Claudia. Nice to see you. Hi, everyone. Carter Smith, for those online. Two questions for you. You talked about there's a lot of emphasis on DEI initiatives, especially this year. How do organizations measure their success in this area? Yeah. And then the second question, a little different. I've seen some regulations around diversity and creating more inclusive workplaces. Could you speak to maybe some of the regulations you've seen?
And what regulation are you thinking about, Carter?
Think about maybe in California where equality in boards and, and
absolutely.
Some leadership teams.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Perfect, Carter. Yes, so the way to measure this work can be done very differently. There are some hard metrics, like when we talk about putting a strategy in place. We help clients develop those metrics. We help them understand how to measure success. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We know representation is a hard metric, meaning you can look around the room and you know you have people from diverse backgrounds. That is one way. So who are you hiring? Are you retaining them? And when you put forth some of those aspirations to have a more visibly diverse organization, then you can also have targets. What I mean by targets is not a quota. It's just understanding we're going to be intentional about bringing more women into senior leaders' roles. And for that, we're going to be spending more time and more money in searching for that talent. So when you do that, you're able to measure. We spent this much time in searching for these candidates, and now we have this bigger pool of talent. Was it worth our time? Was it worth our investment? That's how you can measure that investment in success as well. So you can talk about representation. We can talk about employee engagement. There are employee engagement surveys. I think we all have opinions about surveys. Some of them are effective, others are not, but there is a little bit of data that you can gather. And then we also talk about anecdotal data. We talk about, so the quantitative, but the qualitative data is just as important. Right now, we're having a lot of conversations within organizations to get to the heart of what's really concerning employees. And you won't get some of those concerns on a survey. It has to be a facilitated discussion. So many different ways of really measuring success here. I think one other way of understanding how to measure success is to think about the three strategic areas, which is workforce, workplace, and marketplace. Under workforce, we have that representation conversation. Who are we hiring? Workplace, you're talking about engagement. Who's staying with us? Why? And what are some of the policies that we have in place? And then marketplace is, who are we serving? And are we missing opportunities in the marketplace because we don't have the people to serve, or we don't know how to produce the type of service that they need, what's happening there. So those 3 areas are areas that each one of them have hard data that you can measure, and then qualitative data as well. Was that helpful, Carter? Very helpful. Okay, sure. Do we have time for one more question? No more questions. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Claudia. We are very fortunate to have you in our club. Wonderful presentation, and personally, thank you for tying the 4-way test into that. I think that's very beneficial. We are donating the book, What Does It Mean to Be an American?, to the Downtown School Library in your honor, and I know you've inscribed a couple of words of encouragement to the students, so we thank you for that. Friends, thank you for being here today, as well as all of you who are visiting us on the YouTube channel. And don't forget, if you want to see the presentation again, feel free to access that and maybe pass that along to others who might be interested in this very important subject that Claudia brought to our attention today. Upcoming speakers. So November 19th, next week, we will be honoring our police and firefighters with awards. Now, we're going to have a limited group. Maybe many of you know in the past this has been a very, very well-attended meeting, but because of the situations, we will only have the 2 department chiefs, our 2 recipients, and 1 guest each for each honoree. So there will be a total of 6 representatives from the 2 departments. And so we won't have a room full of police and firefighters that we've had for many years, and I'm sure the parking lot will look like it's more normal than when the police and fire show up and they got all their squad cars out there. November 26th, happy Thanksgiving. No meeting. Enjoy that with your family. And then, as if today's presentation wasn't the best, the next one up is going to be our own Greg Edwards from the Greater Des Moines Convention and Visitors Bureau. I'm sure you'll want to be a part of that as well. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for being a part of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. Thanks for tuning in wherever you are. And as President Doug says, if you have the opportunity, try and leave something behind. We are adjourned.